And if Tyson don't want to speak to talkSPORT or speak to Simon, that's his prerogative. What trainer worth his salt wouldn't know if a fighter was juicing?
Totally agree. Totally agree. I'm
if he don't know it, then he shouldn't have a trainer's license. One thing's for sure, they're big punchers. I think Daniel's the bigger puncher, but they're big punchers, and I fancy if there happens to fight, they'll do the business.
Welcome to Talk Boxing, episode number 78 with myself, Spencer Oliver. Now, Simon Jordan is still swanning around in Germany somewhere, but do not fear. We've got legendary boxing promoter, Mr. Frank Warren with us. Frank, how are you doing?
I'm good, Spence. Yourself?
Yeah, brilliant. Now, listen, I mentioned Simon swanning around in Germany pretending to work. Don't know what
Definitely
he's...
pretending, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't know what he's up to out there. But look, I know you're a huge football fan, so let's kick off with that. You know, England, their chances. How do you think they're doing out there at the moment?
Look, they're top of their group despite not playing. They're playing at their best, so I'm pleased with that. And I'd like to see a few more goals, and maybe a bit more daringness in the play. But that's the tactics they're playing at the moment. I think they've taken a lot of stick, and I think some of it, certainly from Gary Lineker and Alan Shearer, was a bit OTT.
Yeah.
Especially towards Harry Kane, who they keep saying, you know, well, they were saying he's in his 30s, and you know, like he's seen, more or less saying he's seen better day. I mean, he only turned 30, I think, a few weeks ago, and he scored more goals than both of them, who had a much longer time as England internationals. He's broke all records, scored in his last game. That's what he does. I don't know. I hope they. Well, obviously, I'm English. I want it to be turned around. I want to see us win it. We got the players to win it. We've got a great squad of players. There's no doubt about it. There's some great young players. I just think we've got to get the tactics right and a bit more daring in the team, and hopefully it'll work out for us. But
yeah.
I'm a bit up. They're top of the group despite all that.
Yeah. Well, listen. Let's hope that they do it. I'm patriotic. Not a massive boxing fan, but I want them to win, obviously. So let's hope they go on and do that. But look, this show is called Talk Boxing. We're going to talk boxing, and we've got to start off with your main man, Mr. Tyson Fury. He's been in the news for the wrong reasons, maybe in the last couple of weeks.
He had a blowout.
That's what I want to get into, Frank.
He's been in. You're an ex-fighter, so
Yeah.
you know this better anyway. He's been in training camp since last December, leading up to that fight. Nearly 7 months in training camp. He had a couple of week break because of his cut eye when the fight got postponed, as has Usyk, by the way. And he went out had a few drinks. One thing about it, you know, if you read his wife's book, you know, Paris's book, or you read Ring Tyson's book, and anybody who knows him will tell you he can't drink. He has 2 or 3 drinks, and he goes.
Yeah.
And that's what he does. And when he said he was escorted out, he weren't thrown out. He was leaving the place, and that's a fact of life. He had a few drinks. Funny thing, I'd done a press conference. It was a couple of days before. Was announcing one of our shows a couple of days before, or it was after the 5v5, and I've got to be honest, I was a little bit tipsy. I had a couple of glasses of wine, first time for ages, and that happens. And you know, he's not he's gone out and he's had a night out, and that's it. It's behind him. He's in training, and he's you know, he'll get into his serious training, ticking over at the moment before the show. I think it's the 21st December in Riyadh, which would be the rematch.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. You know, this situation that you got, the world that we live in today. Whereas if someone has a blowout,
everything's on camera.
I recognise. Listen, I recognise as an ex-fighter, when you've had those training camps, and how intense they are, especially at that magnitude, how intense they are. That a fighter does need a little bit of relax time and a little. So I think he was a little bit hard done by some idiot filming him on a phone and then posting it. And
that's the world we live in.
Yeah.
And maybe couple of people who were there should have looked after him a little bit better from that perspective. But it's there. It is what it is, and you know, I'm going to dress it up and turn it around any other way. It is what it is, and that's it. It's not whilst he's in training. I think Grealish wasn't he out somewhere as well that week and had a few drinks. They're out. You know, they've had a hard season. They've been playing that. You got, you know, now and then you got to let your gun have a blowout, and good luck to him. And he's not a pisshead. He's just had a drink. He can't drink, as I just said, and you know, I spoke with him a couple of times over the last few weeks, and He just wants to get back into the swing. You know, I told him to take his time before deciding on anything, but he wants that fight badly.
Well, listen, I think a loss can restoke the fire with a lot of fighters sometimes. I mean, he was in the news again this week, Tyson Fury, staying on Fury, talking about the fight with Alexander Usyk. Now, I've got to pick you up on this, Frank, and I'm sure you're gonna give me your answers to it as well. But he was in there saying that Alexander Usyk, one, was an easy fight. He couldn't believe how easy it actually was, and he was having fun in there. Obviously, he can't wait to get in there. He said, apart from round 9, he thought he won the fight easily.
I don't think he won the fight easily. I thought he just nicked him. It was a close fight. It was a fight of two halves for me, and I thought there was parts of that fight. Certainly before he got caught on the nose. I think it was in the 8th round. That's when he lost his focus completely. But I think there's a couple of times in there. Certainly going back when he was going back in the 7th, at the end of that 7th round, where he was catching him quite easy with that uppercut and jab. He was catching him quite easy with it. But look, it is what it is. He felt he was being told that he was winning the fight. I thought it was very close. I just had him nicking it. And some people had it the other way. Thomas Hauser, who's a very well-respected American journalist, he scored it a draw, as did a lot of American journalists that I spoke to, American boxing people, because they're not investing in it like we are. I'm biased. I know I'm biased. So it was a close fight, and it's going to be an interesting fight because you can see, you know, a lot's been taken out of them. I was in both the dressing rooms after the fight. I went to Tyson's dressing room, and then after that, I went to go and congratulate Usyk, and Alex was in the dressing room, and Aegis, and at that stage, the doctor was examining him, and they felt he may have broken his jaw. Yeah. And the doctor advised that he went and had an MRI, but it turned out apparently he impacted a tooth, and he may have done something to his eye socket. So it was a brutal fight for both of them, a very, very fiercely fought fight, and it's going to be interesting to see what's taken out of either of them. And I think that'd be a telling situation come December. I mean, you look at the 3 alley fights. You know, the first one with Joe Frazier, you look how tough that was, and then the one with middleweight and all that. At the end, you know, they were brutal fights, and they took a lot out of the fighters. They took a lot out. I mean, Tyson's been in some seriously brutal fights. Certainly 2 out of the 3 fights he had with Wilder. Yeah, they were very tough fights. Well,
we saw what that done to Deontay Wilder, didn't we? When you look at Deontay Wilder's performance since Parker and that last one against Yale Zhang,
it ruined him. And you think that third fight? For me, that third fight is one of the best heavyweight fights I've ever seen live, attended live. I'm not talking about when I was a kid and watching stuff on TV. It was an exceptional fight where everything was given by both fighters. And that's why it annoyed me a little bit at the time, where some of the so-called people sitting on the safe side of the ropes, I know I sit on the safe side, but, you know, like some of the journos and that were just sort of disrespecting Tyson. On one hand, they're saying Usyk's the best of his generation, he's a great fighter, which he is a great fighter. 2 different weights, Olympics and everything, a very good fighter. But there was nothing in that fighter. So that make Tyson a bad fighter to lose a close fight.
Yeah.
And one judge gave it to him.
Yeah, of course. Now, I saw that actually, it was about a month ago, wasn't it? Yourself and Simon had that infamous debate on Tyson Fury and his bipolar, etc., coming up on talkSPORT.
I don't get it. I mean, he just dismisses bipolar like it's nothing. And the reason I'm so passionate about it is because my younger brother. My younger brother committed suicide.
Right.
He had, you know, he was schizophrenic, and he may have been bipolar as well. But that is a bad place for anybody to be, where you're in a situation where to get that pain that's in your head, the only way to stop that pain is to kill yourself. Yeah. And Tyson was at that stage as well, when he has been well documented in the past, and he's diagnosed and that. So to just dismiss something that he says when, you know, immediately after a fight he said something, or, you know, which and if you look at the symptoms, and I'm banging on about it again, you go on to NHS. Go and look at all the symptoms of someone who's bipolar. They'll say things that wouldn't be expected, or might be sometimes maybe a bit outrageous. That may be the case. My brother used to say things sometimes. Yeah. And it's not something you just dismiss. It's mental illness. It used to be called manic depression. and they now call it bipolar. It's a terrible, terrible mental illness, and he's been a champion for mental illness. And what I was trying to say, and unfortunately, listen, Simon, I've got a lot of time for Simon. Unfortunately, with Simon, his opinion is the only one that matters. He's got it in his head, and that's it. And I was trying to explain what was happening with Tyson, where, for example, where he was going to retire. He woke up in the morning and said, I'm retiring. That's his prerogative. You want to get up in the morning and retire. After 3 months, you think, screw this. I don't want to be putting the bins out anymore and taking the kids to school. I'm going to go back into the fight game. That's his prerogative.
But you know that...
I'd much rather he does that now than retire and come back 3 or 4 years' time.
With them mood swings, Frank, would that be down to the bipolar with Tyson Fury? Because he's so unpredictable, isn't he? Like, we never know what he's going to say, what he's going to do.
I think, I know, sorry, I'm interrupting you.
Yeah, that's fine.
I hear what you're saying, Spence, on that, but it's not like that. I talk to him a lot, spent a lot of time. It's not some nutcase who goes, oh, this, and going all over the place. He's a very, very, very intelligent person. And he'll say things, and sometimes he'll say something that is a symptom of being. It's not an excuse. I'm not making. Yeah. That's what annoyed me with some. It's like, oh, we'll roll that out. I'm not rolling anything, and I'm not an apologist. And I don't even. I'm just saying, people who have bipolar, who suffer from bipolar, will sometimes say something that may upset someone, and that's it.
Yeah.
And if Tyson don't want to speak to talkSPORT or speak to Simon, that's his prerogative. He hasn't got to do any. He's not obliged to do anything. He does what he's paid his dues. So then, like as some journalists have said, like he's that's what I annoyed with Simon. He's got to fight. He's got to fight. It was in his column. I think he said he's got to fight. Do the rematch to redeem himself. Yeah. To show his greatness. There was nothing in the fight. What, has he not gone out and beaten Klitschko, the best of his generation? He'd gone to America to beat a fellow who was undefeated for 6 years. Yeah. Away from home. And remembering when I was getting all the stick about Dillian Whyte, who was the number one from some, he should be getting more money. He deserves more money. He's the mandatory. He's a great fight. He's going to be that's going to be a big fight. Pissed all over him, didn't he? He won that fight so easy.
I think what he was going on about Simon with that rematch with Alexander Usyk, he was saying to me basically, look, as legacy, when you're talking about legacies and modern eras, for Fury to go back and box Alexander Usyk again seemed the obvious thing to do as opposed to fighting someone like Anthony Joshua.
It's his first loss.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he lost one fight. Muhammad Ali got beat by a fellow who won the Olympics, I know, but in Spinks. What was that? His eighth fight.
7th or 8th fight,
yeah. And you can go down. Lennox Lewis, who's one of the greats, got beat by Oliver McCall, Frank Bruno got beat by Hasim Rahman. Yeah. Both those fighters I had an involvement with at the time when we made those fights. He's a great fighter, reversed the decision. Don't make him a bad fighter. But I tell you what, Hasim Rahman and Oliver McCall fights, both those fights weren't as close as Usyk and Tyson. Yeah. Muhammad Ali against Spinks wasn't close as Usyk and Tyson.
Who made the decision, by the way, to go straight back into the immediate rematch?
It was already mandated before the fight. Okay. When the fight was made between the two guys, it was that the winner could call for a rematch if he wished to do so. Right. And that was it. And he called for it in the ring.
Does he change his camp going into this one now? I mean, there's been a lot of talk about that.
He's got a way to go yet. I mean, there's a few things that I'm sure will get worked on. Tyson's no fool. He's a very, very smart operator. He knows his boxing inside out, and he'll do the right thing. He's not some young kid. He's 35, 36 years of age now.
How many times do we see him in a ring again, Frank? Do you reckon? Tyson Fury, I mean,
not
the big
a lot,
fight.
I hope. He's going to hate me saying this. Not a lot, I hope. Yeah. I hope he wins. I believe he will win the fight. Yeah. I really do believe he'll win the rematch. And who knows? I mean, we'll see what happens after that. Everybody wants to see him and Joshua. But Joshua, we'll see what happens in September.
You just led me into it beautifully. September the 21st, big press conference coming up.
He's got to come through his fight, whoever he's going to fight.
That's where you led me, Frank. Anthony Joshua, Daniel Dubois. That's the fight that I'm hearing is rumoured to be happening. Dubois coming off that great win against Filip Hrgović. Surely it's got to be.
I would love to see that fight, and we'll see if it can be done.
Okay.
Everybody's working for a big fight in September.
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, staying on the heavyweights then. The winner of that fight, if that fight does happen, AJ versus Dubois, is that the roadmap for, obviously, Fury, Usyk, winner? That would sort of make sense and probably end the careers maybe of certain fighters.
They're fights that, that it's not even a roadmap, but they're fights that as a fan you do want to see those fights. They're fights you want to see. But, Tyson, because of how he's conquered or tried to conquer his demons, he's done that through boxing and training. And he's the sort of guy, when he's in the gym, he needs an end result from that. He needs to see that light at the end of the tunnel. I'll be fighting on this date. I've got something to aim for. That's how I've found it when I've sort of, when we've been making fights for him over the years. You can say, a couple of fights fell through, and it does knock him sideways, because he needs that goal, that aim. Well,
I think everyone does. Every fighter at that stage of your career, to keep motivated. People don't understand that either. The training day in, day out, and the punishment that is, not just physically, but mentally. Oh, it's insane.
Listen, boxing is 90% mental.
Yeah.
You get yourself physically well. You can do that, and with the coaches, and especially when you get to a certain age, you know what you've got to do. It's mental. It's the mental side of it. That's the big thing. So we get the press conference Wednesday with the fight announcements. Is that right, Frank? We find out the fights. There's a press conference on Wednesday, and you will find out who AJ's fighting. Great card. It's a great card. Well, listen, let me throw a few at you, Frank, who I think are rumoured to be boxing on there. Jai Opetaia, could we see him back in the ring? I don't think he's fighting on there. No, or Hamza Shiraz? I'm not sure. What about Joshua Buatsi versus Willie Hutchinson? What a fight that would be. That's a great fight, isn't it? It's out the purse bids at the moment. Yeah. And Fabio Wardley and Fraser Clark, another great fight. I mean, if we could get anything near... That won't be on that card. That won't be on that card either. So there's a lot of cards and a lot of fights, Frank, that people... Unexpected fights on there. It's part of the Riyadh season, and it all will be revealed on Wednesday. But, please look on Wednesday, and there's another special announcement that'll be made on the same day regarding the show, which I think everybody's going to like. Yeah, really looking forward to that. Look, I want to go back to Daniel Dubois, obviously AJ. AJ has looked good in recent times. Daniel Dubois has looked sensational. I think the team up with Don Charles, by the way, has been fantastic. I think Don, I've been in the gym with the guys, so Don's in the same gym as me. So I see it from day to day how they work together. And Don works more on, and again, the psychological side, the mental side. Physicality is always there. He said, look, with Daniel, that's the easy part. It's the mental side. I've always said with him, it's, physically, he's got a great jab. He's a powerful puncher in both hands. He's probably one of the biggest punchers in the heavyweight division, if not the biggest puncher. He's young. He's very mobile. He got caught a lot of times in that fight with a right hand. He took some good shots, and I think he's got a good chin. I think with him, it's 95% up here. Yeah. And it's keeping his focus. Well, we've seen improvements for it, haven't we? That Filip Hrgović fight, a fight that... And the Baby Miller fight, both of them. The Baby Miller one as well, absolutely. But, I mean, the Hrgović fight, I picked Dubois to win just because of... I thought the timing was perfect with him. I thought Don's done a great job with him. I saw him, like I say, preparing. And he was an overwhelming underdog, really, with a boxing fraternity going into the fight against Hrgović. Hrgović himself was super confident as well because of their previous sparring when Daniel was not the fighter he is now. But that performance was unreal against Hrgović. It was, but that sparring, Spence, a lot of people, they didn't spar once. They had 4 or 5 spars. Yeah. And if you talk to his previous trainer and manager, Martin Bowers, they ain't what's being put out there. Yeah. They were tough. Wars. Tough spars. And he was a young kid then against a man who had a wealth of experience as a professional. But look, he did. You see what he did. He had to do it there, and he's gained confidence. He gave... Up until Tyson's fight with Usyk, he gave Usyk his toughest fight as heavyweight. Yeah. No doubt about that. Baby Miller, he showed at any stage of the fight, the last round, how dangerous he is, the power that he's got. Do you think he beats Joshua if they meet? If they meet, I fancy him. Yeah. Look, what do you think? It's just about timing, Frank, and people forget he's only 26. He's a baby still. I'm a big thing on timing. For me, the best punches are all about timing, and the best matches are about timing. For me, AJ's gone to a new trainer in Ben Davison. He's got his mojo back a bit. He looked good in his last couple of fights. He's done what he's had to do. It's going to be a battle of the jabs, and it's going to be a battle of the minds, because both of them in fights when they've got caught have gone on the back foot.
Yeah.
And that's what it's going to be. And one thing's for sure, they're big punchers. I think Daniel's the bigger puncher, but they're big punchers, and I fancy if it happens to fight, they'll do the business.
Tony Bellew recently made a comment saying that he thought that AJ versus Dubois, since we're on that subject, was a great fight, but he just feels that AJ is better in every department and sees the fight being over within inside 2 rounds.
I think you said the same thing about Ergovic.
Yeah. Fair comment, to be fair.
It's a true comment.
Yeah. Let's hope that it does happen, Frank, because it's a fight, I think, for the British public. Fight. World title fight, Wembley Stadium.
Two big
Come on.
punches like that in a ring, you'd love to see it.
Yeah, I really would.
Of course you would.
Really would. Listen, that Willie Hutchinson fight that I've just been talking about, Joshua Boatsy, he's come out of nowhere, really, Hutchinson, hasn't he? What a win last time out against Craig Richards.
I fancy, I fancy.
Yeah, I know. I spoke to you out there.
Everyone kept saying, who do you fancy out your 5 guys? I said, they're all in winnable fights, and we can win all these fights. That team, which they did. Willie Hutchinson. Look, he's Scotland's highest decorated amateur boxer. And when he came with us, I was so thrilled. I mean, he really was doing well. And then he had that first defence, that first title fight he had.
Yeah.
And the first round, he looked pretty awful. Second round, he got his mojo back. It was in COVID, if you remember. I think it was in COVID.
The one that he lost you to? Yeah. Lennox Clark, wasn't it? Yeah, Lennox Clark.
Yeah,
it was lockdown times,
and then
I think.
The third round, I was the most shocked person in there. And then he had a few problems. It took him a while to get his mojo back, and he's back in it. And that was a superb boxing from Craig Richards, who. That fight with Bivol done extremely well.
Absolutely. Listen, I thought up until the 9th round, I went, he could win this.
There was nothing in it.
It was the self-belief that let him down in that fight.
And he done a better job, I thought. That Willie done a better job than
he really did, yeah.
And so that fight is a cracker of a fight. And, I fancy him on his day. If he keeps doing what he can do, and the fact is he's coming off a good win, he can really well and truly put himself in the picture for a title fight.
Could we see Shiraz in a world title fight? The reason I'm trying to pick your brains is because I'm trying to think of names, and I'm going Janabek. Is that a fight that we could see?
I would love either of them, but they've both got fights.
Right,
they're
both
defending their titles. I think one's in late July, and I'm not sure when the other one is, but they're both defending their title. But he's not. We've got him into the number 1 position with the BO and the BC.
Yeah.
So he's number 1 in both organisations.
So you can just guarantee it's a great show. Eddie Hearn was talking about it being the best undercard of any type.
Oh, it's a cracking undercard. It's a cracking main event it'll be when we finally announce it.
Dubois, Joshua Dubois.
When we let you know who it is. And then the undercard be a really good undercard. Good fights on there, good fighters.
Yeah.
And a special surprise.
Yeah, so Frank, moving away from the heavyweights and the big show at Wembley, Anthony Yarde. Now, I know that you've been together such a long time. You had a great relationship with Anthony Yarde as well, actually. You put him into 2 great world title opportunities. Where are we at now? Like, is he free promotionally? What is the relationship with the pair of you? It seems a little bit messy.
I've not had a cross word with him, but I spoke with him, and obviously his management and his team and his lawyers it's now with lawyers. And he has a contractual obligation to us, which we expect to be honoured. As simple as that.
Yeah.
As simple as that.
I mean, there was talk of obviously Boatsy Yarde, and that was a fight that everyone wanted to see. I thought we were quite near to getting that fight.
We made an offer. We agreed terms with Boatsy for the fight. We agreed terms with him. We couldn't agree terms with...
so who's advising Anthony Yarde? I mean, it's crazy. It all seems a little bit mad.
It is mad, but best you ask them. And what can I say? I mean, all I know is he was... From day one, for a guy who had, 11 11 amateur fights, we done a magnificent job. And he did a magnificent job in the ring. And it's a shame we're in this position. And it's not the first time it's happened in boxing with me or with other promoters or whatever. But you know what? In a couple of years' time, or maybe a year's time, he's going to sit there and think, what what happened there.
Yeah, well, he put a tweet out recently, didn't he, saying that the agreement had terminated.
Well, it has
now, and he was free contractually and promotionally.
Well, he's not.
Yeah.
He has contractual commitments to us.
Yeah, it's crazy. So that's still...
That's our position.
All very
That's
up in the air at the moment.
That's the end of that. Well, who knows what's going to happen? We'll see what's going to happen.
Yes.
In the meantime, you know, we've offered him a lot of fights. We've offered him lots of fights.
But there's so many big fights out there for him right now.
But he was offered the fights. He was offered that Bibble fight that Lyndon Arthur took.
Yeah.
And on that night, I would have fancied him to beat him, looking at Bibble against Lyndon Arthur that night.
Yeah. Yeah.
Considering what Anthony done with Lyndon Arthur.
Yeah, sure.
He was offered that. Let's say the Buatsi fight. I mean, it's been a few of them. But anyway, we are where we are.
Let's hope it all gets resolved, though.
Well,
Let's hope that it all gets resolved, because it just seems a shame with the light heavyweights.
It is a great shame, because I really, really am. You know, I'm a bit sad. It's got to where it's got to. But look, you know what? It's happened.
Yeah, sure. Well, anyway, look, moving on. Ryan Garcia has been banned now for a year. I mean, I don't know how this has worked, Frank, because he failed actually a third test with Osterine. So he's failed his 2 tests anyway. Then he's failed a third test. Now he's accepted a year ban. I'm going to ask you 2 things about this. He's had a right. I know exactly that. I'm going to ask you 2 things about this, because this goes on to another high-profile guy who didn't accept the ban, and he's got continued, and his career seems to be all over the place. No one knows now what is happening in the Conor Benn situation. You look at this with Ryan Garcia, who's failed 3 tests and gets 1 year ban. I mean, look, you've been in the sport a long time. I have, and you know how strong I am about, you know, drugs within the sport. That's not really a good look, is it? A year ban like for Ryan Garcia, and then they're already talking about the rematch.
But more than that, I can say to you, because you're a boxer. So you've got a trainer. Your trainer every day is with you. The trainer spends more time with a fighter than anybody. With him in the gym every day, talking to him. He's in your corner. He's there. I mean, you are supposed to be like that, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. Father-son relationship.
Good. So let me ask this question. What trainer worth his salt wouldn't know if a fighter was juicing?
Totally agree.
If he don't know it, then he shouldn't have a trainer's license.
I'm with you.
That's where you stop this, because a young fighter, or any, you know, maybe older fighters have got their mind around, but a young fighter who starts juicing, he ain't just going to decide he's going to stop doing that, because he'd be worried about the trainer, worried about the gym and everything. So that's where you stop it. You should be, where did you get it from? Who supplied you it? And if we don't get that, you ain't fighting. Not in a year's time. You ain't fighting until we know. Yeah. And that's how you end it.
Yeah, no, totally. That was going to be my question too. You know, how do we put a stop to it,
that's
Frank?
How you stop it.
It's as simple
that's
as
how
that.
You stop it. It's not very well
I'm glad you said that.
Ban the fighter for everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. So what happens? Then the trainer's allowed to carry on? Or the nutritionist, whoever it may be in this day and age. Is that how it works? I don't agree with any of that. Who's ever given it to them, they're the ones who should also be dealt with.
Yeah.
More severely.
Yeah, no, I'm just so glad that you said that, because I wasn't expecting that answer from you, if I'm totally honest, but that's my thoughts on it as well. Totally my thoughts on it. Look, moving away from that again, let's move on to other boxing news. There was a fight on the undercard of Felix Cash versus Denny. There was a fight there that didn't come to light, did not happen. Khabib Fayez versus Kane Baker. Now, did you hear what was going on surrounding that? The gambling controversy, big bets going on, was it match fixing? I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I've got to be honest, you know, in boxing, we have managed over the years, so in the UK I'm talking about.
Yeah.
There's not been, especially in the age of tabloid journalism where a story is paid for or something, you've not had, that's not happened. No one's been arrested, gone to prison like they have for cricket, football, tennis, all these different sports have all had big gambling problems, big gambling problems. And that's not happening in boxing. It's been very, very clean as far as that's concerned. And obviously there was something happened there because the fight was pulled. And if that is the case, there should be an investigation. The Boxing Board of Control have a regulation, no betting.
Listen, I think
that's in the regulations. You are not allowed to, you're not allowed to bet.
I think you got to salute Eddie Hearn actually on this situation, because he actually pulled the fight because he had the conversation with the British Boxing Board of Control and the Gambling Commission as well, because the Commission got involved in it as well. They've all come to the decision to pull the fight because the irregular betting going on within the fight.
And if there was irregular betting, it's really easy to find out where most of those bets would.
Yeah.
Because if they're working with the commission or with the bookmakers, they're going to know who put the bets on.
Well, it's interesting because Kane Baker actually released a statement saying, listen, you know what was going on. He said, if I was betting on myself to get knocked out, I would have gone through with the fight. I wouldn't have pulled out of the fight. He said, you've got to look at Fires' team. They was the one that was sending bribes, sending money, asking me to take a dive, and this is why the fight didn't happen.
Say that again?
He said that their team had sent bribes and money to his hotel, and that's why the fight didn't happen, because he pulled out of the fight because of this situation. So it was a serious thing going on.
Well, then the Board of Control
need to look at it closely,
and it will go further than that.
Yeah.
Because if that's the case,
it was a statement that he released.
It's crooked, and that's you know what's happened with footballers. You know what's happened with horse racing, all the sports, crickets. People gone to prison over it.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want it. You know, we've got enough problems in our sport already. You don't want
to buy a ticket to go and see a fight. It should be straight.
Yeah.
I mean, you get mismatches. That happens. Seen that, like you in any sport you can get a mismatch, but if it's a gambling coup, then something needs to be done about it.
Sure. Now, Frank, I suppose before we let you go, we've got to talk about how the rest of the year looks. I mean, I know we're talking about September the 21st. We're going to get these big announcements. Daniel Dubois versus Anthony Joshua. And I'm just playing with you. Let's see how that goes.
We've got a great show.
What's the rest of the year? What's the roadmap for the rest of the year?
We've got a great show in Belfast this weekend.
Yeah.
We've got Pierce O'Leary, who's undefeated, who's really looking good. He's got a bit of a homecoming there for him. He's fighting Quinn. It's a really good card. Walter Fury's making his debut on there. Joe Cooper's making his debut. We've got a lot of good fighters on there, so that's going to be a cracking card. We're going to start doing a lot of stuff in Belfast because we've built up a decent Irish contingent of fighters now that we're working with. Then we've got the Magnificent Seven up in Birmingham, which is a cracker. David, we've got
great format you've got going there, by the way.
That is a great format, and it works on every level. And the fights there are superb. You know, with that main event, which is a rematch, which is a cracking fight between.
It seems like you're putting now more 50-50 fights on than ever.
We're doing that. Then we've got a good show at the O2, which is two of the older heavyweights in Joyce and Derek. That's going to be interesting because whoever loses that's it. They're done, I should think. In that division. And then we've got a good rematch on there as well with Dennis McCann and Bellew, and that's a really cracking fight.
Great fight.
But fabulous cards. I mean, they're really, really good shows.
And how's Saudi looking for the rest of the year? We've got October the 12th, is that right? October the 12th?
October the 12th is the Bebertiev and Bivol, and there'll be a fantastic undercard which will be announced in due course. That's a cracking show, the start of the Riyadh season. The Riyadh season are obviously sponsoring the
September show as well.
The show on August the 3rd in the States with Crawford. That's a Riyadh season show, so that's another great event. Tyson, as you know, in December, and then we've got lots of other shows coming up, which we do on TNT. They're going to be some fabulous shows.
Joyce Chisora, just before I let you go, I've known Derek a long time, as I've had Joe as well. It is a must-win fight for both of them.
Yeah.
But I mean, that will be an absolute barnstormer. I said to the
Styles gel.
Yeah.
The Styles gel, it should be. And, a lot of people, including myself, was saying that Derek should have retired. So we'll see. He wants to have his fight. He thinks he's got the beating of Joe Joyce. Joe Joyce knows that he's had a win since those two losses against Zhang. Funny thing, before the Zhang fight, he was the
main man.
No one wanted to fight.
The main man.
He was like that. He was
the man to take Fury's crown. A lot of people were saying.
You're absolutely right. They were saying. And then look at Zhang now. He's done brilliant. Big Bang. I love work of him. He's done brilliantly well.
I'm glad you mentioned him actually, because I forgot about that, and I wanted to talk about that. He's getting that age now, the way he's maybe got another 12 months or so.
Yeah, he's no chicken. Yeah.
Do we see a show over in China, Frank?
Yeah,
is that going to happen?
We promised him we're going to do that. We're
really
working hard to make it happen.
What, this year?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
I'd love to do that for him. He's such a nice guy. as he says, Chinese power, big bang zang.
Wow, you ain't got room for a little one. I've never been to China. I wouldn't mind going over there, actually.
That'd be all right. And then we've got, there's some great fights to be made. We've got some fabulous,
So you could be going in the Middle East and all over, Frank. You're just literally, it's bigger than ever now, isn't it?
It is big. I mean, we're doing it, but I mean, you know, you have different. It's cyclical. You know, it's ups and downs in boxing. That's what it is, and everything's flying at the moment. It's good, and I'm pleased we're part of it. Queensberry's doing extremely well. You know, my son George is doing really well. My other son France is doing well with Moses too.
Yeah.
Who I think is the future of the heavyweight division. You know,
I've been vocal about that as well.
He'll be the next one coming through.
Yeah.
And he's doing extremely well. He's the world youth champion now. We've got a lot of youngsters there who I'm really pleased how they're progressing their careers, and they're going to go on and there'll be big names we'll be talking about next year in real good solid fights. I mean, we have the best without a doubt stable of young fighters in Queensberry.
That's going to give a lot of people confidence, because you have a lot of people talking about after AJ Fury, you know, after this heavyweight crop has gone, Deontay Wilder obviously looks like now he's now gone. What is the next crop coming through? Is there going to be a lot of competition coming through?
Tyson, he said that it would be. You know, I mean, obviously after, you know, if Daniel, if we manage to make that fight, he's there. He's a young man, but then you got Moses coming through, who's 19. He's still a teenager.
Yeah,
but he's a cracking heavyweight.
Brilliant. Well, Frank, as always, thanks so much for your time.
It's a pleasure,
I was a bit worried you weren't going to get in today, actually. I had a call from Emma saying, is it remote or are you going to come at the studio? I thought, oh, please come in.
I thought it was live.
Yeah.
You know, in the studio.
Yeah, doing it. Yeah. So, all right, brilliant. Well, Frank, thanks so much.
As always, you young man.
That's it for episode number 78 of Talk Boxing. Until next week, we'll see you then.